Isn't life so amazing? Sometimes it can get crazy, but hey, that's okay. We've got another day to make mistakes and say sorry. There's no sense in our worry, 'cause all we can do is try our best to make it through with love.
Hello and welcome to the Well, I Fucked That Up podcast. I'm your host, Laura Malone, and I'm very excited to be joined by a guest this week, an amazing lady who I met in Lisbon not that long ago, Carla Biesinger. Have I pronounced that right?
Yes,
Yay!
hi.
It's so brilliant. Correct. And then, like, your brain is going, you're going to say it wrong, but it doesn't matter. I got it right.
I know. I was actually seriously thinking about, okay, either I have to get married or just come up with a fake last name, because definitely it's not a very English natural name.
Well, no, I thought it was, I would have pronounced it naturally more by singer.
Yeah.
I think would have been what, but it doesn't matter.
It's fine.
We got it right. But yeah, like my maiden name, Kavanagh, like no one ever,
Okay.
people look at it, they're like, what? So I'm like, thank goodness I'm alone. Like, most people Carla, thank you so much for joining me. Could you tell us a little bit more about who you are and what sort of got you to this point?
Sure. So I am an online course creator primarily and a business coach. So I help women build their online business and build their audience online so that they can get more clients and create more freedom and wealth in their lives. And my journey as an entrepreneur actually started in 2011 in Argentina, where I kind of accidentally opened a restaurant together with my boyfriend at the time. And I was in Argentina for 5 years building this restaurant. It was a really amazing time in my life, and also a really difficult at the same time. We got an investor. We made a lot of mistakes. We definitely fucked up pretty much everything you can fuck up in a business, and definitely learned a lot. Yeah. And one of the main things I learned was that I don't want to have a business that keeps me stuck in one place. And I also don't enjoy managing big teams. So when I eventually left, I started looking at, okay, what kind of business could I create that would give me more freedom? Mm-hmm. I came to the conclusion that an online business would be a good idea. And so I really just started taking courses online to learn how to sell stuff online. And initially my idea was to sell products.
Okay.
And then very quickly that kind of didn't work out. And I was like, maybe I can just create an online course. And so that was in 2016. Mm-hmm. And that year I brought out my Instagram Secrets to Success course, which now we've had almost 8,000 students. Wow. Mainly women from all over the world, doing all different kinds of things, helping them grow their audience on Instagram. Many of them have gone viral, gotten book deals, like completely changed their life because of Instagram. My life has completely changed because of Instagram. So while I definitely sometimes have a love-hate relationship with it, I think it's an amazing platform and I love teaching it, and love also teaching about passive income and creating online courses, and just more freedom.
I love that. And it's really interesting, your story. So you probably don't know, but I actually used to run restaurants. That was my in my past life of worked in hospitality for a really long time, and definitely can relate to that feeling, like the managing people. I actually say that that's where I learned to coach, because I actually was like, you just got to have these conversations that get results really quickly.
Yeah.
You don't have time to be sitting down, digging deep and doing all this stuff that my perception was that like office-based jobs had.
Yeah.
It's so fast-paced. So that's where I sort of first learned about coaching. But yeah, again, the sort of feeling very tied down to, I think it was the restaurant itself rather than the place. I think the sort of industry I felt really tied to. And definitely prefer working in an online business. Definitely has more freedom and flexibility. So when I met you in Lisbon, you were sharing your story about how passive income, how you created that, really, because you've obviously created a really great course that gets results. like, but how did you get it to a place where it's generating a fabulous income for you and you're not working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, like, all of that kind of thing. And I know a little bit of this story, but I'd love you to share some of it.
Yeah, sure. And I was actually just on a call with a client before who is starting to build her funnel.
Yeah.
And I can just so relate to where she is at, because in my first 2 years in business, I definitely wasn't killing it, right? I created this course, I launched it, I got a few sales, but then I didn't continue to make sales. And I was really worried about being that sleazy, salesy, pushy person on Instagram. And so I actually never made any offers. I think like in the first 2 years, I relaunched that course a couple of times, but I tried it in kind of ways so that no one would really see that I was promoting something. I tried doing challenges. I tried doing these like 4-part video series. I tried one webinar and was so nervous when I did it the first time, and then had tech issues, like no one was able to hear me when I went live, that just put me off. And I didn't do another live webinar for 2 years. And it really wasn't until I started working with a coach with the goal of actually building an automated funnel, because I was getting so burnt out from these launches, and the launches weren't really bringing in any like significant amount. And with her, she was a big believer in doing webinar launches, like webinar funnels, building webinar funnels. And so I shared this in the talk I gave. I did a live webinar every single week for 6 months. And every single week I was just tweaking the slides, tweaking how I spoke about the offer, tweaking a little bit of the content until I really found like the perfect webinar. And then eventually I automated it, and that webinar was running for 4 years. So that part of really creating the funnel, building the funnel, like tweaking it until it really works, it's something that definitely takes time. And that's where my client that I was with just before, she just created it, she just launched it, and she's only had like 4 people watch until the end of the webinar. She hasn't had any conversions yet. So it's like, okay, it's just not enough people yet. So you can't really make any conclusions whether the webinar is good or bad. We just have to get more people into it. And that I think is a challenging point for a lot of people when they're like, okay, I created this webinar, I spent all this time creating the emails for it, promoting it, etc. I don't know if it's working, so maybe I should try something else. And I think that was my biggest mistake in the first 2 years, always trying something else instead of really sticking with one thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's actually something that I see a lot of my clients do as well, like sort of panicking. Like, oh, I describe it as offer vomit. So, blah, new offer, like throw something out, or like, change the price, or like discount, and those kind of things. It comes from a place of fear. And but I think that was one of the most amazing things that I learned from you when you spoke at the retreat in Lisbon. And you talked about just making little changes, and like this isn't supposed to, like, I don't remember if you actually said this, but this was definitely like the takeaway. Like, you weren't aiming for it to be perfect that time. You were just aiming for it to be slightly different, and learning and tweaking and playing. And I think that was one of the most valuable things that I sort of took from that. Like, oh, actually, it's better to get it out, learn from it,
totally,
and go, this is what worked really well. Because I think it's so easy when you're in the early stages of your entrepreneurial journey to look at people that we would describe as successful because they've got the followers, or they've got the 6-figure, 7-figure business, whatever it is. And you look at it and you go, oh, she's just got it so easy. But actually, when we break it down, there was, what did you say, 6 months of live webinars, tweaking before you landed on what you felt was perfect. And then another thing I took away was like, you're like, okay, so I've got this bit what I'm really happy with. What do we start tweaking and playing with now?
Yeah. And that's the crazy thing, right? Because still today it's 2024. So it's been 8 years of having this course. It's been about 5 years of having the funnel running.
Yeah.
And I'm still seeing what I can tweak, like checkout pages, emails, sales pages I've tweaked many times. So it's kind of fun that you can always look at, okay, how can I like just increase the conversions by 1%? Like, what can I look at this month to just see if we can make it work a little bit better? Right now, I'm working a lot also on my organic content. Like, how can I get more people into my webinar for free without paying for ads? Then obviously we're always testing ads. So there's a lot of different pieces that you can work on and increase your results.
Yeah, absolutely. And could you tell us a little bit more about so the story for you, because you shared your sort of graph of like you were tweaking and then it was COVID, wasn't it, that things went kind of bonkers, and I just loved the story you shared there. So to share that.
Yeah. So in obviously the first 2 years of my business, I really was only averaging $1,500 a month. It was really not a lot of money at all. And then once I started working with this coach and we started doing the live webinars every week, I actually, my income jumped to those 10K months that I just wanted to have so badly. And I made $100,000 in 10 months. So that to me already was absolutely wild.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would agree with you.
And it's just like, oh my God, okay, this is working. Now what do I do? So at this point, I was still running my own ads. And I have to look, I think I was probably spending around $2,000 to $3,000 a month on ads. I was paying off my coaching program, which was $25,000. So every month I was paying $1,800 to the coach, which just I'll never forget as well. It's just like, okay, I have this money coming in and now it has to like leave my account again. And then I was like, okay, this is working now. Like I've automated it. It's still converting because there's also obviously a difference between live webinars and then just having it run on automation. And then I kind of came to the point where I felt like I don't know how to scale this. I don't really know how to scale the ads. I've never done that before. And I just didn't feel like I had the skills to do it. And also, obviously, when you're spending your own money on ads, you're kind of scared, right? You're like, oh my God, like, okay, maybe I'll increase by like $10 a day. And so I eventually came to the conclusion that I wanted to hire an ads manager. And I got a guy recommended to me by a friend who I trust. And I just kind of went with him. And we made this deal that instead of paying him the normal, I think it was $3,500 a month, I was paying him on a revenue share. So I didn't feel like I can't remember if there was a base salary plus a revenue share, maybe. But it didn't feel like a big risk. And he pretty much immediately took the sales from $10,000 a month to $20,000 a month. So I started with him in December or January, like January 2020. And then obviously COVID happened. And everybody was at home watching webinars. And my sales literally went from, I think in February, we made $20,000. And then in March, we made $70,000. And then in April, we made $90,000. And I just really was just like, oh my God, I cannot believe this is happening. And I really, this whole time, I thought it's gonna stop. Like this cannot be true. Like this is just like a COVID thing and it's gonna stop. But it actually didn't ever really slow down while I had this funnel running. So that was really crazy. Really.
I can imagine you sort of sat there like, what? Like the little stripe payment, like, what is that? So there's a couple of things here. So I'd really like to talk to you about that sort of risk element, because you said you signed up to work with a coach, and that was, a considerable investment for you at the time. And And then, of course, you sort of had conversations with this ads manager about what would feel comfortable.
Yeah.
You knew you had to get help to grow it, but it was about finding the way to feel comfortable. What would you say to people who know that they need that? They're in that situation where they know that they need a bit of help, but they don't necessarily have the cash just sat around. It's like the rock and the hard place.
Totally.
One.
Yeah.
I've been there myself. And it's a story I've heard a lot from successful entrepreneurs, that they're like, it came to this moment and I just knew I had to go for it.
Yeah.
Did it. And things changed.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody in that moment?
Yeah. So I think the most important decision is obviously like, who do you invest in?
Yeah.
Right. And with that coach, she's not doing business coaching anymore. But I actually had taken, so I think I found her through an ad. I took a freebie. I paid $200 for a bundle. Then I joined her group coaching program, which was $4,500 at the time. I actually had money for that from my restaurant payout.
Okay.
And I worked with her in that group program for 9 months. So I really felt like she was the person, like, not only was it someone who I saw, like, she really showed up for her clients, also her process. So she was teaching webinar funnels. And I really believed like, yeah, this is something that can really work for me. So it's really the person and then the process. And then obviously looking at their track record, right? Like, who else have they helped? What results have their clients gotten? So really feeling like into, okay, is this the right person who can help me achieve what I want to achieve? I think something that I've learned later on is also like, okay, like in terms of, do they actually have the kind of business that I want to have? Do they have the kind of lifestyle that I want to have? Or is it like not really value aligned? But I think that's like a nice to have. Yeah. So it's like the person, the process, and then the proof, really, how they've helped people. If you feel confident in that, and if you feel like, okay, this person, if I follow their steps, or if I, follow how they're coaching me, the only other dependable in this equation is me, right? So am I willing to show up? Am I willing to do things that I haven't done before? Am I willing to get out of my comfort zone? And like, often when you are making such a big investment, it's like, okay, this is it. It's like, I'm all in and I'm going to show up in that way.
Yeah.
Versus if you're maybe buying a $200 course, you're like, yeah, okay, maybe I'll watch this. Like, I just recently bought a $100 course. I still haven't finished it. If it was a $10,000 course, I probably would have made the time to watch it. So yeah, it's definitely doing your due diligence to make sure the person you're investing in is really someone who is showing up, because I think there's definitely, especially right now, there's a lot of people making a lot of claims that aren't necessarily backed up.
Yeah.
So I find that when you're just seeing like, what kind of content is this person sharing for free, right? Is it someone who is just using like clickbaity hooks, but is never actually sharing any value? It's someone who's just really good at marketing, right? But are these people actually showing up and sharing things for free or for like low prices? Like, I love investing in low ticket offers because I'm just seeing like, okay, how is this person teaching? Like, if they're saying that I get this for $27, am I getting that? Are they over delivering? It just says a lot about what you can expect from someone as a coach.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think when you break it down like that, it doesn't feel as scary, does it? Because like you say, you've done your due diligence, you've gone, right, like there's a process, like, have I ticked these boxes? And then, yeah, absolutely, that sort of final box, like, okay, so it's finally, I'm happy. Now it's down to me. Am I prepared to do? And whatever it is that the person you're working with, like, you mentioned about the claims that people make, and I think that is a big hot topic. I think people talk about it at the moment a lot, and it's so interesting because if you'd asked me 6 months ago how I felt about, the now to 10K kind of, marketing, I thought it was so gross. I was like, no, that's disgusting. How dare people like make these promises? And then I'm like, oh, my program's called Breakthrough to 5K. So it really felt, but I had to be really brave with that. But I was like, it actually came down to what you just said. It was like, do I believe as the coach that if someone comes in and gives, this many hours, this much to the process, is willing to do X, Y, and Z, do I 100% believe that they'll get that result?
Yeah.
The answer is yes. And like, will I do everything within my power to help them do that? The answer is yes. So but it really felt uncomfortable at first saying it, because there's this big conversation. But actually, any coach worth their salt, if you're thinking of investing in them, challenge them on the promises. Say like, okay, so talk to me about people who have achieved this.
Yeah.
What are you expecting from me in order for me to get?
Yeah, totally.
And they'll answer those questions.
Yeah, and I think that's often also something that happens when someone invests in a coach. And I actually made this mistake with my last investment, where things weren't going as well in my business. And I was like, I'm just going to pay her, and just that transaction is going to fix it. I was like, no, you still have to do the work, and you still have to show up. So I think that's also sometimes something where people are like, yeah, this coach is going to fix things for me. It doesn't quite work that way, but obviously a good coach and someone who, can help you. Like, so often it's about the messaging and how you're positioning your offer and how you're talking about it. If someone can help you with that and can help you really sell it in a way that, or talk about it in a way that makes people want to buy it, like, that's a huge shift, right? And these are all just skills like copywriting, marketing, sales. Most of us don't know these skills because we come from very different backgrounds.
Yeah, absolutely. And you pick them up, and like, that's the thing. It's like, we're all learning all the time, aren't we? Like, I think I'm a pretty good copywriter now, but I've never trained as a copywriter, but I've invested in training, like, not a course, but like, I've worked closely with a copywriter to get better at writing copy. So guess I am a bit of a trained copywriter. So I've just taught myself. But do you know what I mean? We do that, as particularly, I think it's as women, is almost put ourselves down, like, oh, I haven't got this certain official qualification, I haven't got a degree in this. Actually, life experience and actually physically doing it is just as valuable.
Totally. Yeah.
I've got another question for you, Carla. So you've talked about this wonderful sort of journey to success, and the sort of figures and how wonderful that is. And I think, but you've also mentioned that there were times that it felt really scary. It felt like all money was coming in, yay, oh, it's gone.
Yeah.
And that is like tough, especially if you're earning more than you were 3-6 months before. It is a really tough sort of mindset place to be in. What tips would you give to people in that sort of situation, where the money's feeling really conflicted and things are feeling challenging, even though they know they're on the right path?
Yeah. And I think there's two things that I would recommend. One is obviously really working on your mindset, right? Because it's really, at the end of the day, it's you against you. And if you can focus on your why, and you're focused on, okay, this is why I'm doing this, and yes, it's possible, and like really believing that it is going to work, and that it's just a matter of like figuring it out until you've figured out what works for you. I think that's so important. The other thing, and I've definitely been in situations where I felt like under so much financial pressure and stress, that maybe it's also okay if you're like, okay, maybe I'll get a job for 1 day a week, or maybe I have a different, maybe I'm coaching in someone else's program a few hours a month to get a little bit of, or maybe I need to like scale back on certain things so that I don't have this pressure of needing to generate X amount. I did that last year after like over 4 years, my funnel stopped working, my ads stopped working for whatever reason, I tried a few different things, and it just really, I couldn't get it to a place where it was working the way I wanted to. And so first of all, I turned everything off for a few months. And then when I turned it back on, I had let go of my ad agency. I brought the ads back in-house. I was saving a lot of money. I just scaled back on team costs, also looking at like software, right? Where was I just spending money that maybe wasn't necessary to just decrease my cost? And it just put me in a completely different mindset of being like, okay, I used to have to make $10,000 to just pay my team, and plus all of these software expenses, etc. Now my cost is probably down to about 3,000. I'm like, I know I can generate $3,000 a month, like no matter what happens. And so finding ways to either extend your financial runway or just look at taking some of the financial pressure off, I think is really important. But then really most importantly, I think it's just the mindset piece. And I see, when you look at people who are really successful, most of them have been in business for a really long time. And you can bet anything you want that they have gone through difficult times, but they are the ones who are still here. And then there's other people who maybe did really well, and then all of a sudden they disappear. Maybe because they had a baby, or maybe because like something happened and they were like, oh my God, I don't want to do this anymore. So it's really the people who have the most resilience, and who just want it and who are willing to just get up and try again, who will be successful and will be the ones who like make it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that phrase, make it, because I think it's very easy when like you're looking at other people to go, oh, like when I've got the 10K month, the 6-figure, 7-figure, whatever, normally it's money, related, talk about that. Do you feel like you've made it?
So this is such a cool question. And I actually went through that last year because I had 2 years in a row where we were making 7 figures, and I felt like I need to aim for more. So when I joined this coaching program last year, I was like, okay, maybe now I can aim to make $2 million a year. And then everything kind of went to shit. And I was like, okay, what do I actually want to make? And what would feel like I've made it? And what would it feel like to be like, okay, this is actually good enough. And I don't need to stress and aim for something that I actually don't really like. Why do I want this? Right. And I think that's a part of the coaching industry where we're always pushed to aim for more. And it's like, if you're not growing, you're like dying, and like all these kinds of things where I think, it's like so out of reality sometimes. And you really want to look at, okay, what, like I sat down and I was like, okay, how much money am I actually spending each month? How much money do I want to put aside because I don't have a retirement fund? Like I still need to build up my financial future. But what is that number actually? And it's actually a lot less than $2 million a year. So I've really scaled back on my expectation this year. And I was like, my goal. And I think for me, the feeling that I've made it is, okay, I have created some financial security. I have bought my apartment, for example, like I have a mortgage, right? But that's something that I did by myself. I'm not married. At the time I was single. So that felt like a really big achievement. And also I'm actually very content and happy with my life. And to me, like the feeling of being content with what you have, that for me is like, I've made it because I'm living where I want to live. I have amazing friends. I'm spending my days how I want to spend them. I'm like able to have so much freedom and flexibility. I could work from anywhere. I can travel every month. Like those are the things that I want to have in my life, and I have them. So for me, I'm like, yeah, I've made it. And the things that I thought I needed to create or like chase, it's not actually what I want.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I think it's all very easy to look at people and go, oh, they've made, but what does that mean? And like, so to have that conversation with you, that's really awesome. Thank you. You're an Instagram expert. Okay. So I couldn't have an Instagram expert on the pod without, I'd love you to share some of the biggest fuck ups you see people making on Instagram.
Okay. Yeah. So, difficult. I mean, obviously, Instagram is a visual platform, right? So the way to grow your following is you have to create content that's visually appealing.
Yeah.
Right. Now, the good news is things like faceless reels are in, right? You can use Canva to even create designs in a very easy way, but definitely you want to put some effort into the visual aspect of your content that you're putting out there. I definitely see some people every now and then who just, it's like all over the place. I actually don't really believe very much in branding. Like my branding is like not even a thing, but there's some consistency, right? So you want to create like when someone comes to your Instagram feed for the first time, they'll look at a couple of different things. So first of all, they'll read your bio and they look at like, okay, what is in it for me? Like what is this person like promising? So making the bio about your ideal client or your ideal follower instead of about yourself is one important thing. And then the second thing that people look at is your feed. And if it's like a complete mess or it's not congruent with what you're promising, people most likely won't follow you. So having that, like the bio, thinking about who you're going to help, how you're going to help them, and then having your feed reflect that and reflect it in a somewhat aesthetic way. Luckily, the days where we have to create this like online magazine are over. And definitely with how Instagram has evolved, it's more about content that's really full of like education, information, or entertainment, right? But people place more importance on what am I actually learning here, or what am I getting from it, then like it has to look pretty. The second thing, and I think that's something that's just, again, it's a skill that most of us aren't born with. It's really understanding how can I stand out and how can I get people to stop in a scroll. So definitely the trend is towards reels, right? Video content, short form content. Like I post videos that are 4 to 6 seconds long. Because that actually is realistically a time that someone will spend to watch. So anything over that, I see the watch rate drop. So looking at like what's working, right? And not just being completely ignorant and being like, no, this is what I want to create. And so I'm going to do it my way. Like you have to see how the platform is evolving and what type of content works. So completely ignoring trends is definitely not something you should be doing. You don't have to dance in front of the camera, like you don't have to point, right? Necessarily, you can find other trends that are working. And then definitely learning like, how can I get people to stop and to watch? And so that skill of creating hooks, like hooking people in, it's definitely something that, and you know, the good news is there's a lot of people sharing what hooks you should be using, so you can look for those. And just try different things. So looking at trying different things, looking at what's working, recreating more of what worked for you. Because if you look at accounts that go viral, it's really often accounts that just talk about the same 2 things over and over and over again.
I had a reel go viral.
Yay!
And it's so funny. So I'm one of those people who like probably overthinks reels, like, and you know, I wouldn't call myself particularly savvy and, you know, clued up on like, you know, so some of the reels I see, I'm like, oh, I wish I was that good at like the video editing and took the time to learn how to do that. But I'd made this reel and I had it, it was just before having my nails done. And they were a right old mess because I'd missed an appointment. So they were looking great. And I was in the car and I just took a video of my hand, you know, turning over. And I was like, and I'll take another video of the same thing. Didn't realize I had to move the car in between taking the video, so the background is completely different. When I posted it, I was like, oh, and I was doing it quite quickly. I didn't even add music. I completely forgot to add music, and I just added this like little comment, and it got like over 19,000.
Amazing.
You're like, what? Like, it just proved to me, a bit like this podcast, it's not supposed to be perfect.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be. But when I get my nails done next time, I can recreate something, and I could probably add music this time, maybe try trending audio, and things like that. And I actually look, because you share a lot of sort of trending audios and tips.
Yeah, I do share, like my audience wants to see Instagram tips and Reels tips. So while I also love sharing about passive income stuff, that's just the kind of content that does really well for me. So I definitely share about that regularly.
Yeah.
And right now I'm doing this Reels challenge. So I'm sharing a trending audio every day to my stories, just to help people, because you can spend 15 minutes just trying to find a trending audio when it's like, okay, it doesn't matter. Just take this one.
And I think that's the thing, I used to completely overthink, like, oh, the lyrics have to really match like the message, and it's like, no one cares. This is not what you're doing here. You're creating a snippet, a moment that will just spark something in somebody, and it might not be the thing that gets them to reach out. It's just part of that customer journey. If we think back to what we were saying about when you signed up to work with a coach and the advice you give, it's that little nugget of a reel, that little moment of content is just building that trust with somebody and helping. So but that's the thing you've taught me most of all. It's like, just tweak, make changes, be playful with it, try it, see what happens.
And with the Reels, I've actually heard it from so many of my clients. They were like, oh my God, I just put this thing up in 5 minutes and it's my best performing Reel yet.
Yeah. And I think that's sometimes the universe does that to us, doesn't it? Like, we overthink, and then something will happen to mean we can't overthink. It's just got to be, there it is. Oh, I forgot the music. Oh, 19,000 views, whatever. But taking those lessons. Before we go, we'll find you. Instagram.
So Instagram is actually the best way, at Carla Biesinger, if you want to link it in the show notes, so people don't need to worry about spelling. That is definitely the best place. I also send out a weekly newsletter with a Instagram tip and a passive income tip every single week. So you can get onto that through my Instagram bio.
Yeah, we'll stick the link to that in the show notes.
Amazing.
So people can...
So if you want to say hi in the DMs, let me know that you follow me on the podcast. I'll make sure to follow you back as well then.
Oh, amazing. Well, Carla, thank you so much for coming on. It was amazing to meet you a few weeks ago in Lisbon and just hear that story again. I feel all inspired again.
Thank you so much.
This episode will be going out after I've done my first live webinar. Well, first live webinar for a long time, and
amazing.
First one online. I've done lots of guest expert talks and like mini trainings, but this is slightly different as it's part of me building.
Oh my God, I can't wait to hear how it goes.
Yes, I'll let you know. But thank you so much for joining me, and for those of you listening, don't forget to check out all those links in the show notes.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you so much for listening to the Well I Fuck Her Up podcast. I've been Lauren Malone. It's important to acknowledge that the intro and outro music was written and performed by me. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what you think of the podcast. So do come say hi over on my Instagram at lauren.malone.coaching. Down in the show notes, you will find the links to my freebies as well. But hey, that's okay. We've got another day to make mistakes and say sorry. There's no sense in our worry, 'cause all we can do is try our best to make it through with love.